What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Justin here as always. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today to talk about VHS 1999, or just VHS 99, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th movie in the VHS series. Guys, before we get started, if you could help me out, help the algorithm out. Like this video, and of course, comment down below anything that pops into your little head about the VHS movies that you want to talk about. I respond to all my comments, so please do drop a comment below. Not only do I like just chatting with all of you guys, but it helps out the videos. You guys know how that works. But let's get into my review of VHS 99. So like I said, this is now the 6th movie in the VHS series. There was VHS, VHS 2, VHS Viral. There was a spin-off movie called Siren, which some of you may or may not have seen. It's a spin-off of one of the characters in the original VHS movies, one of the better segments of the entire series, really. Then we had last year or earlier this year's VHS 94, and now finally VHS 99. Now, I'm a huge fan of the first and second movies. The first one is a fantastic found footage movie. Every movie except for this one really has some sort of a wraparound story. VHS 1999 has like little vignettes and little interludes between all the segments, but not necessarily a wraparound story as a concept, which is kind of different. I don't know how much I like that. VHS 2 is great too. I still have yet to see Viral, and I've never watched Siren. I think when it came out, I didn't know what it was, didn't know it was a spin-off of the original VHS movie. You guys can let me know if that's any good or if it's worth watching. I'll check it out. But when it comes to this newest movie, well, first of all, VHS 1994, I highly recommend watching VHS 1 and 2. They're great. Viral, I can't speak on. I've heard it's pretty bad. Let me know how Siren is. But 94 was awesome. That was a great return to form with some really quality segments. There's some great stuff in 1994. I honestly highly recommend seeing that, especially the Hill Ratma segment. There's also some really cool bioengineering, gross stuff. This one segment where this guy turns people into like robots, like bio-android people. That's really good. It's really awesome. I highly suggest it. Both of 94 and 99 are exclusive to Shudder. When it comes to VHS 1999, I will say this is definitely a step down in quality. I'll get into the individual segments here, but if you were expecting it to be as good as VHS 1994, you, like me, will probably be a little bit disappointed, but there is some good stuff throughout these. The first segment is called Shredding. This is directed by Maggie Levin. I haven't seen much of her stuff. She was an assistant director on The Black Phone, and she also did a segment in Hulu's Into the Dark anthology. This segment is actually the one that feels really the most 90s, at least to me, as far as the aesthetic. It's about this rock and roll band that wants to sneak into this old underground club where this band had tragically died. The setup of the movie is actually kind of identical to the situation that happens in Jennifer's Body, where there's an electrical fire and the band essentially dies, but they want to shoot this music video in there. But it feels very 90s, which is really cool. They go down to shoot their music video, shit ensues, and they may or may not encounter some zombies. It was a lot of fun, kind of dumb, but a decent kickoff to the movie. And then we move on to Suicide Bid, which was an interesting one. There's this girl who wants to join a sorority, and she only bids to one sorority. I guess it's called a suicide bid. I've never heard that term. But these group of mean girls, these sorority sisters, say that they'll allow her to pledge for the fraternity, or she can be in the, sorority rather, if she stays overnight in this wooden casket where this, there's this lore of this other pledge dying. So she has to stay all night in this coffin. And then, of course, something happens. It's extremely claustrophobic, but a rainstorm starts happening and mud starts pouring into where she's at, and she becomes trapped, and there's some interesting things that happen. If you have arachnophobia, this one's going to trigger that pretty heavy. This was one of the weaker segments, but it still had some decent moments with some decent makeup effects, and the acting wasn't that great in this one. But the claustrophobia of her being locked in that coffin, not being able to get out, was pretty creepy, and it made for some good moments. There's some ghosty type stuff that happens. Probably the best segment of the entire movie is called Ozzy's Dungeon. It was directed by Flying Lotus, who made one of the most disgusting, gross movies I've ever seen in my life, called, it's spelled K-U-S-O, it's called Kuso. I honestly didn't get through the whole thing. It's very plotless, and it's, like I said, it's just so disgusting. If you're into super gross out stuff, you might like his stuff, but this segment definitely plays into just disgusting, sweaty, slimy body horror type stuff. But what was interesting about this one is if you're a 90s kid and you watch shows like Legends of the Hidden Temple or Guts on Nickelodeon, it takes place in that world. There's this guy hosting this Legends of the Hidden Temple style show, and there's this young lady who's on there as a contestant, and during the she's super smart and she has her whole life ahead of her, and she has this, like, she breaks her leg during the segment because some kid behind her was pushing her through an obstacle, and there's this exaggerated leg break where the bone pops out, kind of like a Freddy got fingered. The bone pops out of the skin, blood squirts everywhere, and you come to find out that she has been basically ruined her life. She wasn't able to pursue all of her dreams that she was able to do. So they kidnap the host of this Legends of the Hidden Temple type show, and crazy, insane shit happens from there. They lock him in this. I won't spoil it, but it's very disgusting. If you've seen Kuso, you know how gross Flying Lotus can be. This was definitely the highlight of the movie, in my opinion. Next is the Gawkers. This was one of the definitely weaker segments of the whole thing too. It was basically like an American Pie type setup where there's this computer nerd that sets up a computer for their across the street neighbor. She's this smoking hot babe, and they kind of hack into a webcam in her bedroom so they can see her undress and shit. It's exactly out of American Pie. And she turns out to be this horrible CGI Medusa thing. I'm only spoiling it because it's so shitty, and it's just simply not great. And this one's actually disappointing because it was directed by Tyler McIntyre, who also did a segment in Into the Dark, but he also did Tragedy Girls, which I quite liked. I thought that was a really decent movie. And a movie called Patchwork, which is a movie I've talked about a bunch of times. If you're a fan of Frank Henenlotter stuff like Frankenhooker and like Reanimator, it's a criminally underseen movie where this woman is patched together by this mad doctor by several different cadavers, all these different women, and all of the women's subconscious are inside the brain, so they have to kind of think together to move. But it's a fantastic horror movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's great. But this guy directed Gawkers, and I didn't think it was that great. In a VHS movie, you want minimal CGI. The CGI kind of really ruined me with these stupid Medusa heads. It's not scary, it's not creepy, it's just really, really dumb. And the next is To Hell and Back, another segment which I really didn't care for at all. This was directed by Vanessa and Joseph Winter. They also did a movie called Deadstream, which I think was a Shudder exclusive. They have this group of people on New Year's Eve night who have this whole ritual set up to summon a demon, and they actually end up getting sent to hell itself. But due to the lack of budget and just the weird kind of nonsensical setup, the hellscape that they set up is kind of dumb. You can just tell they went out to like the desert in California or somewhere and just shot this, and it's just really dumb. I didn't really understand what it was trying to accomplish. It wasn't really funny, and it was just weird, and I really didn't care for it. The best segments to me are Shredding, the 90s band. If I had to rate the three best segments, Ozzy's Dungeon at number 1, Shredding, and then Suicide Bid are the top 3, and then Gawkers and To Hell and Back are at the bottom. But overall, this is worth watching. Although I did say those ones are pretty bad, the bottom half, they're still kind of worth a watch. It's a good... If you haven't seen any of the VHS movies, I wouldn't suggest this as your first one. I would actually suggest watching the first one and then checking out 2 and 94. I think 94 is just as good as the first one if you wanted to check out just those two. The other ones kind of fall in the bottom half of this series. Let me know what you guys thought of this one, because I definitely thought it was a step down. Although Ozzy's Dungeon, Flying Lotus's segment was great, the other ones kind of fell short for me, and that's always the downfall of any anthology, is weak segments amongst really strong ones. It just makes the whole movie uneven. So that's always a problem with anthologies. An anthology that I would highly suggest watching is the Mortuary Collection. That's a fantastic anthology. Creepshow, Trick or Treat are all great. Watch the Mortuary Collection. It's an underrated, underseen anthology. It's really, really great. So let me know what you guys thought of VHS 99. What do you think of the other movies in the series? Let me know. But guys, I think we're done here. Stay weird. Remember to always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Come to Audio Video Plus, your home for VHS, Beta, and Laserdisc. Over 63,929 movies to rent or buy.